We've just seen protests around the world as part of this global movement against ECOP, the East Africa crude oil pipeline. But the pipeline has been a long time in the making, decades. Can you tell us why these protests are just happening now? What's the latest development?
So, for many years, the campaign has been quite successful in ensuring that numerous commercial banks and financial institutions, as well as insurers and reinsurers, have made public commitments that they will not give support or throw their weight behind the ECOP, East African Crude Oil Pipeline project. And to date, there's 27 major commercial banks and 24 insurers that have made those public commitments. And in the wake of that, what we have seen recently is that the Ugandan authorities, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, has been scrambling to make additional deals with Chinese entities, various Chinese institutions and state-owned entities who are now stepping up to play a more active role in providing finance and insurance support for the project. And so these protests that were held yesterday, there were 8 different protests across the globe in the DRC, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in South Africa, in the US, in London, and in Paris. And those actions were taking the message, very clear message, to those various Chinese entities and state-owned corporations to say that they should not get involved. We do not want them to come in and be the last resort for dirty energy and environmental and socioeconomic harm in Africa.
So, do you think that this is happening more now that Chinese entities and companies are kind of investing in fossil fuels in Africa? Are they sort of replacing perhaps Western companies? Is this what we're seeing?
Look, I wouldn't say that they are replacing Western companies because Western companies are still incredibly active across the continent in numerous incredibly harmful and destructive projects, and as they have been, since the colonial era through until now. But what we are seeing, and a big part of it is a result of the kind of changing geopolitical arena and the so-called Cold War between the East and the West in this current moment. But we definitely are seeing, various Chinese institutions and state actors coming into Africa and playing a similar role to that which the West has played over hundreds of years, and coming in and trying to extract as much as possible as they continue, to compete with existing superpowers on the global stage.
Have there been instances of, human rights abuses when it comes to the infrastructure projects that they're building out?
Absolutely. In the case of ECOP, the entire project, since the time of its kind of implementation and through the land acquisition process, has been surrounded in all manner of human rights violations and abuses, including, the forced relocation and dispossession of tens of thousands of families, and as a result, many of them have lost their livelihoods, unable to put food on the family, on food on the table for their families, unable to send their children to school. But we've also seen in the Ugandan context, specifically, as well as in Tanzania, where uh, land defenders and environmental and human rights defenders are criminalized for taking action and for asserting their opposition to this project. And so that is very much a violation of their right to protest, but it is also a denial of their legitimate stake, especially for young people, the legitimate stake that they have in projects such as these, which stand to have a huge impact on their lives and on their futures. And so, we are seeing these abuses, which in many ways are inherent to the entirety of the fossil fuel industry, and specifically the way in which that industry operates and has operated for a long time on the African continent. In a way that is completely rooted in relentless extraction, exploitation, and all manner of environmental devastation and all.
But so many countries around the world are addicted to fossil fuels, and many have made climate targets and commitments. But what do you think is really the best way to stop ECOP and to make sure that fossil fuels are ramped down as quickly as possible?
Look, what we need is a strong and viable, realistic alternative to projects like ECOP. And in order to create that, in order to make sure that the type of development that we pursue is one which genuinely meets the needs, including the energy needs of people on the African continent. These alternatives must be rooted in the experiences, the aspirations, and the agency of communities who stand on the front lines. And so that is what we're advocating for in the case of ECOP. Is we need a paradigm shift. Essentially, um, we need to put an end to an industry which pursues profits above all else, and replace it with an economy of care, one which is designed primarily and with the core interest of meeting the needs of all our people.